Downright redunculous. Redunculous. Redunculous.
Redunculous, yeah.
Redunculous. It's like homunculus, but it's a redunculous.
It's actually nothing like homunculus. If you mean even by definition, it's nothing like homunculus.
You know what? If you throw around a bunch of fancy words like I do one day, people will start believing you too.
And again, here I am not believing you. All right.
As a disclaimer, we at Two Orks, One Squig would like to stress the importance of freedom of opinion, freedom of speech, the crying of hate, and the non-usage of slang terms of slander in all of its forms to oppress or hinder anyone's development or progress. Understand that this is a fictional timeline based on fictional characters in a fictional universe doing fictional things. Although there are connections to humanity and humanity's beliefs are paramount to understanding the ins and outs of this universe, this is a work of fiction told through a creative lens, not indicative of our own beliefs or grievances. Remember to have fun and spread the word of our podcast to everyone curious about Warhammer 40k or the Horus Heresy. Now let's get into the episode.
Welcome back, dude. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back to episode 3 of the podcast. Technically episode 4, but because we did two-parter, it doesn't really count, right? But episode 3.
Yeah.
And you remember what we're talking about tonight?
Vulkan,
Lord of Drakes. So that's the book we're going to be covering this evening. We should be repping this out every single time we talk about it. But for those of you who haven't joined us before, my name's Will. This is Connor. We are Two Orks, One Squig. We're a podcast. We're being recorded for audio, not for visual. There's going to be lots of clips and stuff out of this, but we're currently on our episode 3. We're going through the Horus Heresy series in chronological order, right, Connor? Chronological order. So earliest recorded date, last recorded date. You know, we're filling in every single book and piece of lore literature that's been written. Including short stories, novels, novellas, articles. You know, we'll be talking about it all. We're using a fantastic resource known as Horus Heresy. Someone who has already put all of the books and their notes and stuff in chronological order. We're not reading off of that. I'm actually reading these books and listening to them at the same time to make sure I'm getting all the pronunciations right. You won't see the script, but all the script spellings right. I'm making sure that it's digested completely so that I can tell my buddy Connor here all about it. You know, he's wanted to learn about the lore, doesn't have as much time as neither of us do, because I wouldn't say I have any more time now anymore. But you know, it's easier for him to digest in this format. So this is it, just two dudes talking about Warhammer. Yeah. And now we're on episode 3. Vulkan, Lord of Drakes, dude. The first of the Primarch novels in chronological order.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited about this one. I do like the salamanders and to learn about Vulkan and his whole backstory and upcoming is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool for sure. I'm excited. So to start with, Vulkan, Lord of Drakes is, of course, a Salamanders novel. Vulkan being the Primarch of the Salamanders, and we've learned about what Primarchs are and you know what they do, but we've only seen a couple of them. We've seen Rabute Gilliman, we've seen Horus Lupercal, and we've seen Ferrus Manus. We've also seen a little bit of Vulkan last time with Mercy of the Dragon, but this time we're going right into first Primarch novel chronologically, Vulkan, Lord of Drakes. It's written by David Annandale. Great writer, in my opinion. Great writer. A lot of people don't have that opinion, and we're gonna put a little bookmark here because this is the first book that we're gonna be reading, reviewing, you know, talking about. so far that is not this well received. Okay. There are a lot of problems people have with this book, and I think it has to do with just reading it, and we'll get into it, right?
Right.
It was published in October 2018 as the 9th book of the Primarchs series, the 9th one published. It was narrated on Audible by the legendary Jonathan Keeble, much like many of the stories we've already been, and much like most of the Audible versions of the Horus Heresy are Jonathan Keeble. Legendary, in my opinion. He just, every time I hear his voice, I think Warhammer. You know? This book is not as beloved as the Primarch it was published about. Okay. In fact, it is not very well received and is considered the second worst Primarch's novel in the series. It flops back and forth. It is considered by many to be the second worst. It is considered by many to be the worst. Right?
Right.
The one that it flops back and forth with is Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard. Whenever we get to that one, we'll see if you know the ideas about it are true. It's a pretty controversial novel, this one. From the mediocre scores on Goodread and others being around 3.5 out of 5, which is right about middle of the road, right?
Right.
It's average. It's average. It's a 3.5 out of 5 for writing, but the audio versions of this score much higher in the 4.2 to 4.5 out of 5 mark.
Okay.
That's why I say I think it might be, if you're reading it, it's pretty dry. But there is some things here, right? So still, most people consider this to be some of David Annandale's worst writing, or that it's just mostly action scenes and almost indistinguishable from a lineup of books to stand out against. And, you know, looking up what people thought about David Annandale's writing Salamander books was a black hole, to say the least, right?
Okay.
I did not realize the community as a whole views Nick Kime and David Annandale with such disdain. I wouldn't say as a whole. Let's talk about the deepest part of the whole, Reddit. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Most of the people on Reddit, the Warhammer Reds, they don't like David Annandale and Nick Kime when they're writing Salamander's Legions.
Now, is it just when they're writing Salamanders, or
it seemed like it? It seemed like it for sure. You know,
Okay.
I honestly will have to examine this again when I see another one of these books. But on the whole, I enjoy the hell out of every single, book published. You're probably never gonna hear me say like, this book sucked, okay, and then talk for 3 hours about it. You know, that'll be a short episode if the book sucks, in my opinion. You know, again, like I said, when we get to the next one that's written by either one of them, we'll have to just compare and see. You know, in the timeline, because again, we're doing this chronologically. In the timeline, this book takes place in the mid 800s of M30, after at earliest 835, before the main part of the Dragon Warriors Legion, which is what the Salamanders were known as before they left Terra and before they found Vulkan. They're known as the Dragon Warriors.
Okay.
It's before they knew Vulkan had been found, before they were renamed to the Salamanders Legion, 18th Legiones Astartes. So once you get your Primarch, you get sort of renamed some other things.
Right.
Like the Blood Angels were the Revenant Legion before they were the Blood Angels, before they met Sanguinius. My favorite quote from this book: war is the forge of new alloys. It creates those who will withstand it. This is spoken by Vulkan as a quote that he is reading from some of his own work called The Maxims of Vulkan. At the beginning of every single chapter of this book, you get a quote from the Maxims of Vulkan. This one stood out the most to me because it kind of encapsulates how this book works. So, chapter 1, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
The book opens in a massive forge set inside a cavern where a, quote, great labor is taking place. There is described here a great machine in this cavern that, quote, the upper portions of the machine occupied other regions of the honeycomb of caverns beneath the surface of Nocturne. So it's big, right? It's throughout the weave of the honeycombs of caverns. Whatever this is, it's big. It's a mighty marvel built beneath into the crust of the homeworld of the 18th Legion, at least how it's described. It's not, but it's how it's described. It is here we see someone named Igniax Nomus Raitan. Igniax Nomus is a designation. Raitan is his name. He appears to be working alongside someone who is legendary later in the lore, the legendary Forge Master Tekel. I don't know if you know that name or if it rings a bell, but Tekel is a big deal.
Okay.
So Raitan is working alongside Tekel here as they marvel at this machine together. Raitan is praising this machine as a marvel, seemingly worked upon by Forge Master Tekel, and Tekel takes great pride in it, though he is very stoic, right? Like, the pride that he sees in Tekel is just Tekel having like a slight smirk, and then it's written like he never does that. You know? So if he's smirking,
Yeah.
it's working.
Right, gotcha.
He calls it a weapon, this thing we're looking at. And he wonders about its true purpose here, even though he sees it as devoid of meaningful purpose here on Nocturne itself. Raitan and Tekel ruminate here on the meaning of the machine being as unknown as the void they are leaving Nocturne behind for. You know, they're looking at this and they're like, this marvel that we're working on, it's just as unknown to us as the things out there.
Mhm.
They essentially say that such wanderlust or trepidation here is truly above their pay grade, but they both still feel homesick for the journey ahead. As they both are talking down about having to leave, Vulkan's big ass sneaks up here on them both, and they are both pretty ashamed of their agreements in his sight. Do you know what machine this might be that they're building?
No idea.
Okay. It's not expressly said that this is what it is. I have some guesses. There are two pretty good ones.
Okay.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
Do you know much about the Salamander's Legion to begin with?
No.
Okay.
I know like maybe one or two things. Fight dragons and that they live on their home world.
Salamanders. They fight salamanders.
Well, you know.
Yeah, they're
He
dragons.
He said in the video that I was fighting dragons when I was your age, boy. So
heard.
that's straight from Sakan, and that's what I know about the salamanders.
Sakan these nuts. As Vulkan shows up here again, Raitan and Tekel bow to him and apologize for their misgivings, though Vulkan does not accept it, as there is nothing wrong with what they feel. He also is having his own misgivings, as we catch a glimpse of his own sadness here, and a sight you normally don't see of any Primarch. Vulkan echoes the Emperor here, almost as if he's saying, you know, he needs to fake it to make it, right? Tell me this sounds familiar. He says, quote, "When we shall depart, and where our duty will take us, I do not know. But I do know this. The Emperor has a task for us. Our role will be one of which we are eminently suited." Does that sound familiar to you?
Vaguely, yes.
It's him saying to them a broken down quote of the Emperor himself from Mercy of the Dragon, which was, you know, and you are my crowning achievement. You have a purpose, and it is of the greatest, you know, most singular purpose. You need to teach people humanity, right? This is literally him saying it back to them. So like faking it to make it. And again, these are written different times. They might not be referencing each other, but it's cool when you link it up chronologically how it looks like it, right? Even if it's not really. As for this, it is a storied vehicle, he says, this thing. It took part in one of the proudest moments of the 18th Legion on Terra, long before my father found me again. So whatever this is, it's from Terra and has been brought to Nocturne. We see now that this is a ship of immense design and craftsmanship that Vulkan had brought here to Nocturne to refit and adorn himself. The book tells us this now. But he brought this ship here from where it was sitting defunct on the surface of Mars and is about to take it back to the stars themselves. So it went from Terra to Mars, sat in a scrapyard. It was picked up, brought to Nocturne, which is quite a ways away, by the way, and then is given to Vulkan here. This ship is known as the Spear of Fire. Do you know what the Spear of Fire is?
I would assume it would have to do with something with a forge.
Probably. Upon listening to this the first time, I thought it was the Chalice of Fire, A lot of Salamanders things have the word fire in it, right? I thought it was the Chalice of Fire. It's never expressly stated that what this was isn't, but it is confirmed later that what this is the Spear of Fire.
Okay.
Vastly different things, and we'll get into that.
Now, is that just the name of the ship, or?
The Spear of Fire is the name of this ship. You won't hear that until later, though. Okay. The Chalice of Fire is the most legendary forged ship ever created, and it was for the 18th Legion. Vulkan turned the whole thing into a forge. It's like the whole thing, like with its like million crew, it's a forge, right? That's the Chalice of Fire, but that's not what this is.
Okay.
A little while later, Vulkan and Raitan watch tanks, artillery, troops, and auxiliary vehicles rumble up the massive ramp into the spaceport, ready to set out into the stars to join the main part of the Dragon Warriors Legion with his new Salamander forces from Nocturne. They would be much different than the Terrans. All of Nocturne's people are like jet black with red eyes. These are Nocturnian Astartes that he has been building since the Emperor told him he was going to come with him. And remember, in the previous story, Mercy of the Dragon, they're fighting alongside the Iron Hands, but there's no Salamanders because it was so early. It's just Vulkan.
Gotcha.
Okay, so they're testing Vulkan out by himself, and part of his trial was that the Emperor kept him away from his sons so that he could teach him the ways of the Imperium and the ways of humanity and all that other stuff. We'll get to that. This is stated as having taken years to complete their training and forging of their weapons and armor. Okay, so after Mercy of the Dragon, years later.
Okay.
This doesn't mean a lot of time, but it does mean some time. His brother, Ferrus Manus, and the 10th Legion Astartes, the Iron Hands, are considered very well acquainted and friendly with Vulkan himself, as well as having helped with getting him adjusted within the Imperium's ways, and with Astartes' forces to grow his leadership of his own sons. Because they're finding these Primarchs on their homeworlds. They're not part of the Imperium. Mm-hmm. So of course they're having to train them and do certain things. They do things very well, but they're still having to train them. Vulkan is ready to take his place in the Great Crusade, but he is finding himself devoid of an order to give that will take them to the void and beyond. He asks Raitan, quote, "Does it trouble you that I could not tell Forge Master Tekel when we would depart Nocturne?" To which Raitan replies with, "No, that does not trouble me. Are you troubled?" The Salamanders cut right to the point, and we'll get into that, right? Vulkan is puzzled by the question, but Raitan adds, "Are you troubled by not knowing when our march will begin? Do you wonder why the Emperor has not told you where and how we will rejoin the rest of the Legion?" Vulkan thinks essentially, yes, I asked him why it would not be sooner, and the Emperor responded by keeping me away from all of you. Now he thinks this. He doesn't say this. He just says, yes. and ends that. He actually doesn't express all of his doubts to Raitan, even though a few sentences reveal that Raitan is considered a trusted confidant of Vulkan. Vulkan doesn't tell him what he's really feeling here, but he ends by saying that he has faith that he will know when the time is right. Mm-hmm. A dangerous sentiment to some of the other legions. Raitan wonders if they are being kept back from rejoining the old Legion because they are not meant to. That they might instead have been made to replace the Dragon Warriors who originally left Terra and the Great Crusade to retake the stars in the Emperor's name. Vulkan searches his feelings and finds himself more and more thinking this may be true. From all accounts, the 18th Legion Dragon Warriors are brave, stalwart, staunch defenders, but their losses and casualty rate is less than ideal. Okay? They are being exterminated without proper leadership. They're almost dead completely.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. This happens to a lot of them, actually. A lot of the legions, this ends up with a little bit.
Okay. I can see it.
Maybe the Emperor is keeping them back because the legion that is currently considered the 18th are not truly sons of Vulkan, with the same genetic purity as those being created on Nocturne to launch with Vulkan himself.
Okay.
Vulkan intends to make this conspiracy a lie, and show them that all the 18th are considered his sons and their brothers, regardless of where they came from. This is incredibly different than some of the other legions, mostly traitor legions, that do this differently. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Vulkan is one of the only Primarchs that when he joined his legion, he just was like, all of us are the same now. Nothing it is different. It's weird for that to happen because I've read so many other stories where that doesn't happen, right?
Okay.
A jump occurs here where we aren't told how far in the future it is, but I would speculate it's not long. We are told here that they are defending a spaceport in a city called Cybota. They are withstanding an artillery salvo that's described as, quote, the barrage was undisciplined, the ordnance was primitive, and it was devastating.
Oh, Lord.
Who do you think is shooting at our heroes here? Who do you think they're describing?
Would it be orcs?
Oh yeah, baby.
Is it orcs?
It's orcs. This book is salamanders and orcs, bro. Xenos species are not new to the salamanders, as Nocturne was actually a reaping world for the Drukhari, or the Dark Eldar, which totally sucks to be a volcano planet that is just getting raided by torture gremlins. I mean, come on. But this jump shows us that who we're looking at is the 18th Legion, but they're not the salamanders yet. Okay?
Okay.
This is the other side of the Legion. The story's kind of split, going back and forth here a couple times. This part of the Legion is trying to defend a world from an onslaught of a orc war. And, you know, I mean, if you're going to take a crash course into the galaxy where war is infinite, going from a volcanic death world to fighting sentient mushrooms in space is definitely running the gauntlet, you know, when you think about it, right? Another quote about the barrage here is, quote, it was as if the sky had turned to stone and collapsed, falling to earth in a hammering avalanche. The air screamed with the unending whistle of the shells. The ground erupted and erupted and erupted.
Oh my God.
I mean, the boys is taking it to the Umis for sure here, dude. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We get our first look at one of the greatest, not only salamanders, but in my opinion, one of the greatest Astartes to ever live, Artellus Numion. The man, the myth, the legend. Do you know who Artellus Numion is?
No.
Currently, he's nobody, but he'll get there. Artellus is describing the vid feeds to their Typhon-class siege tank commander as a, quote, total loss of visibility. When these guys can see freaking great, right? Like it's total loss of visibility through a vid feed that is like pristine. Okay? So normally they can see fantastic, but the orcs are raining hell here.
Mm-hmm.
The order is given here, though Artellus does not see this as a truly hopeful one, but they are going to hold here, wait out the barrage, and the orcs will advance no further.
Okay.
The problem is, this is almost the same order that has been given constantly since the war started, and he is feeling the weight of unending attrition war here in just this one campaign.
Okay.
So they're here doing this. That's all they've been doing.
That sucks.
And it's just total attrition. He does say that the war here against the orcs has lasted a year, but that the orcs outnumber them here greatly, and there's no end in sight at all.
Mm-hmm.
This part of the galaxy is named here as the Terrace Division. The orc fleet here is described as massive, with, quote, 1 million of the greenskins descended upon human systems in a collections of vessels that could not be defined by the term fleet. They were a swarm, a pestilential wave of hundreds of wrecks, hulks, and crude assemblages barely recognizable as ships surrounding a central mass the size of a planetoid.
Oh, Lord.
These motherfuckers have an orc Death Star, bro.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. Okay. This war sounds, I would not put money on this fight, bro. You know what I'm saying? in my fantasy Warhammer league, I wouldn't be putting money on this one, you know? Listen, 1,000,000 orcs in waves that seemed almost infinite because they are just pouring off the side of a planet from this Death Star thing in system, but against 19,000 Astartes that originally joined a year ago. Now that joined a year ago. There's still millions of them, and it's been a fucking year. For you math folks out there, that means each legionary would be responsible for killing 52 orcs each and maim one other, right? It's like 52 point something, whatever. So they're just going to beat the other guy up.
That's where the assist comes in.
Yeah, but that's if they were to win completely on the numbers side. The thing about orcs is they are literally mushrooms. We won't get too far into that. We can do that later. Okay. But if you didn't know that, they're mushrooms, just so you know. But once they are on a planet, they spread spores and they grow more boys to fulfill whatever end goal they have. And bro, we know what that goal is. Whoa, dude. Fucking whoa, bro. Corsaira is the name of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking more and more like it's going to join the other planets in the Terras division here in Orc victory as they claim the last worlds of the Antaros system. So this part of space is called the Terras division. They are in the Antaros system on the planet Corsaira.
Okay.
As they weather blow after blow from this torrential artillery bombardment, the Typhon class siege tank in front of Artellus just tears apart and detonates out the front of the viewport, and all hope seems lost here until a miracle happens. Something breaks from the view and leaves the planet behind slowly as refugees begin to evacuate the planet. Quote, he saw a glow, a light of a pillar of fire so huge it could shine through the storm. It rose slowly at first, then faster, climbing higher and higher. Artellus signals all the units here to pull back to the spaceport and evacuate as well. They have to hold this siege here. And they have held it on this front and are enacting their exfil right now. But the orcs, we know they ain't done.
Right.
Aboard the battleship Klostzatz, a person named Vathia Result is the shipmaster.
Okay.
She communicates with Artellus to try and effect a Casavac for the remaining Salamanders legionaries while they make their way to Cybota. The orcs close in around them and they put a proper smackdown on these guys. They're trying to destroy them before they leave and escape with their fleet at low anchor. Do you know what the term low anchor means?
I would assume that it was just be in low atmo.
Yes and no. You're on the right track. Low anchor and high anchor, you will hear a lot going forward. And we'll reiterate it a little bit, but I really just want to go over it one good time. Because before this, we weren't leaving any planets. We were just, everyone was basically planet bound. Right. But now that we're talking about going into space, this is your first book that will include some void warfare.
Okay.
I'm so happy for you. Void warfare is crazy to me. Low anchor, high anchor, you will hear a lot, and so we should go over this. Low anchor refers to the position of the fleet about as far up as the International Space Station is. That's low anchor.
Okay.
They're able to communicate and deploy rapidly if need be, but also they're within range enough to teleport people down to the planet, strike forces, or they can launch drop pod assaults safely.
Mm-hmm.
High anchor is for long-term blockading or holding a world free from void bombardment. Like, where they would be able to stop other ships from occupying the airspace. That's high anchor.
Gotcha.
All right. Usually it's high up enough to obtain geostationary or geosynchronous orbit, which is around 22,236 miles above the surface. Thank you, Google. All right. That's high orbit. So if you can go geostationary or geosynchronous, you're at least 22,236 miles up.
Okay.
And that's just Earth. It gets further away. You know, it could be higher up or closer depending on the size of the planet, mind you. All right. And its gravity and all this other shit, you know. It depends, but that's usually the rank. Low anchor, high anchor. Anyways, they are trying to leave the planet and are actually succeeding. The Orks decide they really just hate losing, so they have turned a very large ship into what is described as an orbital bomb. Which just, I mean, it sounds fucking cool, right? Like,
yeah.
Are they the bad guys in this? Yes. Are they the good guys in my heart? Yes. They almost succeed in this absolute annihilation, and I really just have to describe it here for you because it's breathtaking. Think about this in your mind's eye. Quote, it glowed with the heat of its reentry. Chills already, right? Stoic, this is the gunship they're on, streaked away and the ship dropped past it. So they're like going in opposite directions.
Okay.
The Hulk clipped the hulls of the Thunderhawk, Resilience and Unbroken, and the Stormbird, Flamebringer. Shearing off wings and tails, the gunships tumbled out of control, gravity pulling them back to follow the Ork monster to its doom.
Okay.
Wow. I mean, the imagery is great. The fireball this thing makes is massive for kilometers around. It's like a standard explosion with the blast radius of a nuke.
Heard.
Stoic, the ship that Numion is on, shakes violently, but manages to escape the blast to return to the Klostzats in one piece, even though there is no calming thought that Artelis Numion gets from this. He's like, yeah, I made it away, but my brothers didn't. As the fleet breaks away and cuts through the Ork flotilla and effects a successful escape from the combat sphere, all the Orks here can even do is just try and ram the Klostzats because it's just so well built compared to theirs. They have guns, you know, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
You got to think, the Ork fleet is literally made of junk and asteroids and meteors and all this other stuff, but they have engines and guns. Maybe some of them have wood huts on the outside of them, you know, like they're open to the void, you know, like it just really just suck at void warfare compared to the Imperium, but they slap at ground assaults, right? Like,
okay,
they are winning the ground war here. We get another look now at what is being called the Ork attack moon. From here on out, you will hear this Death Star thing described as the attack moon.
Okay.
And it's big. Let me tell you, it's fucking huge. We'll get into how big it is later, though. The construction was as monstrous as it was primitive. That's the quote that we're about to get into here. It sounds awesome. Ready? Quote, the term designated the immense accretion of the dense planetoid and ruined ships at the center of the Ork fleet. The construction was as monstrous as it was primitive. It looked like a frozen collision. What?
That's pretty crazy.
A mad fusion of wrecks that should have destroyed each other, but instead had cohered. It was grotesque. Artelis is who we're seeing as this descriptor from, you know, so it's obvious he doesn't appreciate the Ork stuff like we do. So that's sad.
Right.
But he's trying to decide what to do about it. It sounds fucking dope to me. You know, like that's fucking cool. Yeah. Right? But they don't want to give the Orks that, right? Their plan, keep fighting with that Ork attack moon so they can draw the attention of the Orks to take the fight off the other human worlds. But they watch in horror, and I, with a fat smirk on my face, as the attack moon starts getting closer and closer to their position, seizing the advantage already. Like the second they left, the Orks were like, there's no more Astartes. Follow them. You know? Oh. They want the fight. That's the thing about the Orks.
Right.
A cruiser called the Calcius is strained to shield failure by, quote, a wave of ships. A wave of ships just ramming the hell out of it.
Heard.
All right?
These are like little fighter ships.
No, they're not. And we'll go over sizes of ships here soon. We won't go over it this time. We'll go over it a little bit. But
Okay.
let me just be telling you here. The ships that are hitting this other ship are kilometers in length.
Okay.
Okay?
That's pretty crazy.
It's not just these little fucking plinky planks, dude. Like, it's not just planes or bombers or, like, you know, small ships. These things are huge. So whatever is ramming this enough to take it to shield failure is big, and it's a wave of them. It literally can't catch up to the Kloszats because of the incoming physical damage. It is being slowed in its movement in space.
That's pretty crazy.
The frigate, Guardian of Flame, detonates as an orc hulk plows it apart. And I really want you to get used to what void warfare sounds like here. So here's the scene. And this is what I'm talking about. This is a frigate on the smaller side, still larger than a Star Destroyer by about 3 times. Okay?
Okay.
It just got plowed in half by one of these orc ships. So they're much bigger, even rivaling the size of some of these ships, you know? Quote, the largest of the orc hulks were almost equal in its size. Its hull withstood several collisions and, are you ready for it? And then a brutish fist of a shape, all reinforced prow and engine, cut it in half.
God.
The huge ram kept going, leaking atmosphere and flame. It was badly damaged, but it hunted. It went straight on into the Calcaeus and struck at the same instance as 2 other smaller ram ships. They broke through the void shields again, just as the strike cruiser's defenses were coming back online. The big ship punched through the Calcaeus's flank and exploded, a torpedo half a kilometer long.
Good Lord.
Dude, in the horror of this, from someone who plays like World of Warships, I bet you can relate to this or put yourself in this captain's shoes. The Calcaeus isn't destroyed by that blow behind the Kloszats. They are on the Vox reporting they have lost all steering and they don't have engines responding.
Oh yeah, you're in trouble.
Its main engines and main battery reserves cook off in a silent flash of a nuclear-powered sun that lights up the void here with a cataclysmic detonation. The Calcaeus is gone, and the moon is getting closer. The Kloszats makes a limping jump at the system's Mandeville point and gets free of the orc fleet.
Okay.
What do you think about that first little bit of void warfare there?
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it gets more intenser. more intensificated.
Intensification to maximum.
Yeah. So the start of the next chapter here, it starts us off on our favorite quote of the book, showing us one of Vulkan's maxims. Quote, war is the forge of new alloys. It creates those who will withstand it. Okay? And it's such a good line about resilience, you know? The Kloszats makes a limping retreat at the beginning of this chapter, all the way back to the Terras system at the core of the division. So at the core of the Terras division is the Terras system. They were just in the Antaros system. They jumped to the Terras system. Okay?
Okay.
And if the orcs, if they're jumping to the core, it means the outliers are gone. You know, your main settlement, you know, you have your small cities that have already been attacked. Now they're coming to sack your core worlds. Okay?
Right.
So you can tell it's already going bad. We hear here that the Imperial fleet is not doing great. Quote, the 18th fleet was a shadow of the already diminished force that had arrived at the Terras division a year ago. It was a shadow of tatters and blood. Not, you know, they really ain't doing hot here.
No.
But what do you expect from orcs? It's hell to fight. Like, honestly, if you think about, like, I know we joke about it a lot, but if you think about fighting them, it would suck.
How many Astartes do you think they've lost by this point, percentage-wise?
Oh man. So they came to the system with 19,000. I would assume they're currently under 3.
Okay.
If they're being described as tatters, I
Mhm.
would more likely put them at 10%, but I want to give them some extra credit here because you're about to hear a lot of them die. So I'll say right now they're at about 3,000.
12%.
Yeah.
Or-
Right now they're about 3,000.
Okay.
It's never said though. Okay, so all this is just speculation. If I said 1,000, it wouldn't seem like there'd be that much loss of life here in a minute. So I'll say 3,000, and that way it'll sound more devastating when you hear what happens next. So they really ain't doing that hot, right? And
Right.
Artellus is sure the orcs are following them here from Cybota, and it's their fault. But his ranking officer, Cassian Vaughn, the Great and Venerable First Lord Commander. He is like, you remember Ushatan, who was the Primarch of the Legio Contagious, the Thunder Warriors?
Okay. Yes.
Ushatan was their like First Lord or Primarch. They were called Primarchs. Vulkan will be the Primarch of the Salamanders, the Lord Commander, and these are all ranks that are kind of loose, whatever. In the Dragon Warriors, the Lord Commander is the Primarch until they find Vulkan. So he is the Legion leader. That's Cassian Vaughn, the Great.
Okay.
Artellus has not been ranked up yet to what he is going to be in these books, but Cassian Vaughn is significant for what else he becomes to be the first honored with. But we'll get to that later. Vaughn tells Artellus, he's like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, yeah, they followed us here, but they were going to be here anyways. So don't feel too bad about it. It is stated that he was a scion that came from a notable family in northern Africa before the launch of the Great Crusade. So Cassian Vaughn was made into an Astartes on Terra.
Okay.
He would have been one of the first wave out when they burned down the last church and sent everybody into the stars. He was one of the first of this legion. Okay? Of this legion. He says they must focus their attentions to stopping the attack moon instead of feeling sorry for themselves. Based. Right?
Yeah.
But we also get more lore about Cassian Vaughn. This boy's a long way from home. Again, from northern Africa. He's still punching above his weight class for sure. He would have been one of the people that left Earth originally and had no idea what was out here. So not only was he elevated, he believed in the Emperor so much that he joined into this secret fucking program, or was abducted, or whatever happened. Don't know his full story. But he left Earth in the first wave. You know what I'm saying? They don't know any of this shit that's out here. They just knew Earth. So Cassian Vaughn, they decide to stage a ground defense on this death world called Antaeum that they are orbiting. Maybe they're going to try and trap the orcs on it. There are no reinforcements to offer if they fail. There's no one coming. Antium will be their last true stand. Regardless of how many last stands they've had in the last year, this is going to be the last stand. Antium is described shortly after as a tumultuous world of tectonic activity and violent hurricane storms with lava flows and chains of volcanoes zigzagging all over the place.
It's hell.
Well, for the Salamanders, this is going to be home field advantage, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, sounds exactly like their fucking homeworld.
Yeah.
Of course, Lord Commander Cassian Vaughn has chosen well the point to make his last stand. A volcano rising out of a flooded lava plain. What a badass. He's like looking at the planet and he's like, that super volcano down there, we're going to set up on the rim of it.
Oh my God.
Right? They begin to build fortifications to prepare for the orc assault as one of the volcanoes they see in the distance erupts so hard it blows the top half of the volcano apart like Mount St. Helens, and they see the raw power of this world could claim them as well if they're not careful.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. One of the Thunderhawks here gets showered in the ejection from the pyroclastic explosion and rolls, falling down the cliffside out of the air and landing upside down, cockpit first, in the lava flow at the base of the mountain.
Oh.
And you know how big the Thunderhawks are. So that thing just got hit by a piece of ejection, like fucking Sea of Thieves, and tumbled, smacked itself, overcorrected, and the pilot went face first in the lava.
That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it's real elemental primal shit, dude. Like Cassian Vaughn screams his defiance here as the ash storm abates and he assesses the forces he has left. They call this place the Cauldron.
Okay.
Across the galaxy, we see Vulkan as he waits for the Emperor to give the word for them to join the Great Crusade. He decides to see his Nocturnian father while he waits for his creator father to send word. His father's name is Nabel.
Okay.
A lot of the salamander names are like 2 letters, apostrophe, rest of the letter, or 1 letter, apostrophe, rest of the letters. Like Nbel or Nabel is N apostrophe B-E-L. Okay?
Heard.
So Nabel, his grave is here. It's said to be a memorial of stone made from an obsidian obelisk 15 meters long that Vulkan etched, shaped, and drove into the ground like a spike himself with his bare hands. Now, keeping in mind, it's 45 feet long. He drove it into the ground with his bare hands. It is, a memorial here for his father. He did it in honor of the man who raised him. He makes the same starting placations here we all make when we go to graves. He says, it's been too long. He's been busy. Things are changing. The Emperor showed himself, and he's got other things, and he's sorry that he hasn't been back. He reminisces how the world has changed since joining the Imperium and driving back the Drukhari raiders that plagued the planet. The cities he sees on the horizon are covered in environmental shields and defense platforms that see them safer now than they've ever been before. Vulkan thinks how they have had to almost tame Nocturne to keep it from consuming them, and thinks how contrasting that is to the people that are both one with nature of the world and also diametrically opposed to it in order to live now. Before the Imperium, it was like basic settlements out here, and they were getting raided by Drukhari.
Life sucked.
Yeah, life sucked. And Nabel is also killed during this time, before the Empire comes, or the Imperium comes. And so before, they were living in harmony with the planet. Like, we're going to stay away from that volcano. We're going to stay away from, we're going to live with the rocks and with the creatures and stuff like that. But now they're almost having to tame it just to survive it. So it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. He apologizes and says the Emperor needs him, thinking again of the Blood Knights of Ranknar. Remember them? From Mercy of the Dragon. Yeah.
I do.
The Blood Knights of Ranknar, and how he ended up stopping that war from exterminating the very people waging it until he stopped their holy sacrifices. He has missed his father, and he is sorry he was not there when Nabel passed. He muses as he asks the grave, quote, "Father, can you tell me when we're going to march?" And wouldn't you know it, the Big E himself, who loves comedic timing.
Yeah.
As Vulkan's asking Nabel if he can tell him when he's going to march, all of a sudden the Emperor shows up. A golden towering figure is walking towards him through the ash and night darkness. He's like, "I'll tell you," like, right? The Emperor shines like the sun and appears to Vulkan here and says, "Now it is time to leave. The Terras system, Antium. Here is where he's going to be tasked to forge a true legion of salamanders under his direct guidance. Old and new will be reforged into the future." We see this machine, still doesn't have a name. We know what its name is. It's the Spear of Fire. We see this vessel being lifted out of its forge here and into the holding it was in, being refitted with and upgraded back into its moorings inside the ancient vessel that they're going out of the planet with. Vulkan addresses his sons. Quote, "Today your crusade begins. Today we go to find your brothers. We go to fight at their sides. We go to them and you will know them to be your brothers, and you will know that the galaxy is your home, and that our great arm is the shield of humankind. Bro makes me want to get gene implementations. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck, dude. He boards the Flame Rot. That's his flagship.
Okay.
Leaves Nocturne with a renewed fleet and legion. But on the journey, Tekel and Raitan are having a hard time wrapping their heads around what Vulkan isn't saying about them joining their kindred dragon warriors.
Okay.
I do want to state here, not one time during the entire book is the other side of the Legion called the Dragon Warriors. They are.
Mm-hmm.
They are the 18th Legion Dragon Warriors. I think the reason that they're not listed here as the Dragon Warriors is because the writer also wants you to know they're the same Legion. You know, you want, like, they're salamanders, but they're not yet. But they will be, so their name really isn't that important. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's almost like the writer is striking that name from existence because it's not going to matter soon. But they are the Dragon Warriors.
Okay.
The Greenskins have arrived at Antium. They drop like a tide from low anchor, like a trail of ants that just keeps coming down and down upon the surface of the planet as they take over the opposite side of the volcanic chain away from the cauldron. The scattered land dots over the flooded lava plain are where the first fights break out between the orcs and the dragon warriors. So they're all getting in tanks and shit and driving out onto the cooled spots to fight amidst lava flows.
Perfect.
Vaughn gets picked up here by a massive orc. And remember, he is in Terminator plate. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So he is a big fucking boy. But the orc tries to bite through Vaughn's helmet here to no avail. He sees this war as a good end if it will come to it, right? Like, Vaughn is fired up. Their tactic is to fight at the edge of the artillery range and then walk back, shrinking the range to maintain heavy saturation of the orc forces as they fall back to the cauldron. I mean, it's a good strategy, right? As long as you can zero it in. You don't want any fresh mortar teams on that strategy, of course, because, you know, they're fighting within the explosion radiuses. They're having artillery land just on the other side of them. It's almost like a reverse blitzkrieg. As Vulkan appears before Raitan and Tekel, and again, it's gonna jump back and forth. So Vulkan appears before Raitan and Tekel inside the amphitheater here in the Flame Rot. He confronts them about their lack of faith in his goals. Raitan says, quote, "The mission of the Terran 18th, it is hopeless without us. There is no guarantee that we will arrive in time. Forgive me, but what if failure is the point?" This intrigues Vulkan, and they conspiracy theory that maybe the extinction of the Terrans, you know, the Terran 18th, is the lesson they must learn for the new Legion to become its own. Vulkan does not accept this. This guy really loves his sons, and the old Terran Legion as well. Like, he thinks they're all his sons, you know? Mm-hmm. Which, again, is very different than some of the other Primarchs. We get a hop here and see that Cassian Vaughn has been fighting the Greenskins for 10 days. This first fight out on the lava plain, since they landed there and the orcs started dropping, he's been out there fighting for 10 days.
That's pretty crazy.
It is only given pause when another magma buildup is detected to explode on the lava plain that they've been fighting in. Vaughn sees his opening, counting on the eruption and staying away from it to occupy the orcs to where they can thin the numbers out to prolong this war. The advancing heavy artillery and army divisions are described so cool here as they make a serious push to punish the Greenskins. Quote, "Vaughn rode in the turret of Ethnarch's doom, scything down Greenskins with its pintle-mounted, twin-linked combi bolter." Do you know what a combi bolter is?
It's
It's a bolter with an undersling. So a combi weapon is two weapons. We'll get to that. The sponson las cannons blasted through the Xenos flesh ahead of them, while the accelerator cannon punched through the orcs with a holocaust of high explosives. Visibility was poor, and what Vaughn could see was the madness of war and volcanic mayhem so utter, coherence was lost. Bro can't make hide nor hair this one, bud. I mean, it is elemental, bro. It's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
The orcs must love this shit, dude. You know, the orcs are probably having a damn good time right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Vaughn gets a flashback here of a time when he was aboard the Pride of the Emperor. Do you know what the Pride of the Emperor is?
The flagship for Fulgrim?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's Fulgrim's flagship for the Emperor's Children, 3rd Legion. We see that he indeed has been found at this point because he himself is on it. Okay?
Right.
So, Vaughn remembers when Fulgrim was being guided through the ship by his new sons that were showcasing their art and their sculptures to him. Okay, so he's remembering Fulgrim, and he was present at Fulgrim coming back into his legion because we can see here that he's on the ship with him.
Yeah,
and it's funny. It's like, you know, it's like a hey dad, look at this thing I made, kind of like, you know, he's watching the sons of Fulgrim sort of reunited with their father, their gene sire. And I mean, it's scenes like these that make the Astartes the biggest relatable humans possible in the settings sometimes, you know? I mean, they are also horrific and awful. You know, like they're also like monsters. But there are scenes like this that are just, they're big kids sometimes, you know? And it's like like I said, it's like a hey dad, look at this thing I made for you kind of thing. I am totally into the parallel reality things, like the Dornian heresy or the Rabushan heresy. I don't know if you know about these. The Dornian heresy is what happens if like Rogel Dorn falls to chaos instead of Horus, or the Rabushan heresy is what if Rabute Gilliman did it, right? I love those things, you know? I mean, it's total fan fiction, but I bring that up because it would be honestly pretty cool to see this being described in that kind of a setting, because that's what it makes me really wonder if things could have been different for the 3rd Legion. You know, instead of Fulgrim, you know, falling to Slaanesh, which we'll get to that. Instead of Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children, spoiler alert, falling to Slaanesh, it would be interesting to see, you know, where they would be if that wasn't a thing. Or what I mean to say is, like, I really wonder if things could have been different for Fulgrim and his sons. You know, and when we get there, you can make that judgment call too. You know, like, could things have been different? Maybe. You know? Fulgrim is giving Vaughn a lecture on art by showing him a painting that he is likening to the feeling and chaos of war.
Okay.
So Fulgrim says, quote, "It is, in my estimation," and he's talking about a painting here, right? "It is, in my estimation, one of the most perspective depictions of war I have ever seen. When I look at this, I see the inevitable chaos our crusade courts in every conflict, and a warning about the maelstrom unfettered war can become." Thank you, Fulgrim. Very cool. I really wish we got to see a different side of Fulgrim sooner rather than later, but he really was kind of bland before his fate. You know? And by the end of all this, I look forward to seeing if I missed anything, going back through all the books again. And I may change my mind, but I really don't know. But it just, the way they describe him here, he's like, this is my favorite painting of war because it's blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, okay, very dry. Yeah. Thank you, Fulgrim. You know? You know? Like, and even Magnus, when Magnus is on Olenor with his other Primarchs, even one of the driest things he says is he's like, Mortarion, you and I are very similar because my legion is this times this and your legion is that times that, and you think it's weird, but it's like Mortarion just staring him blank in the face like, cool, you know? But it's funny to see like Fulgrim having a moment like this, where it's like, thank you, Fulgrim, very cool. You know? And again, he's having this memory of Fulgrim because he's watching this unfurl in front of him where they're going up against the orcs and it's just utter chaos out there, right? Like he can't see through anything. It's just a blur. It's a smear of warfare right now. You know, there's just so much going on. And I mean, I would hate to be fighting the orcs, dude. Honestly. Like I would hate it.
Yeah.
As an orc, it'd be pretty cool. But as an Astartes, not so cool, right?
Right.
So back on the lava plane, the orcs may be taking a few third degrees here. Quote, a slow wave of lava 3 meters high swallowed the orcs. The greenskins' screams as they died were faint beneath the overwhelming roar of the shelling and eruptions. And this world is looking like it's almost helping the Dragon Warriors out here, you know? And I mean, in a way, it is their element, and Cassian Vaughn is a total badass, right? But if the orcs are anything, they are consistent. So it's round 2 for the old, fuck it, here we go. You know? The orcs sacrifice another one of their ships by committing it to a planetary ram. So they're kind of a one-trick pony, but it's an oldie but a goldie for sure, you know? So they're like, we can't win this, so we're just gonna try ramming the planet again. As this second ship hits this second planet, another ship has hit the second planet, sir. As this second ship hits the second planet, all hell breaks loose. A titanic deluge of lava bursts forth from the cauldron and pours out to overtake everyone on the battlefield, dragon warriors and greenskins alike. But what do you think Cassian Vaughn thinks of this?
Chaos. Still.
Bro stands there shouting to rally his warriors, quote, "This is our retaliation. This is their immolation."
That's pretty hard.
Bro is mythic levels of dogmatic here, right? Like now, however, the Kloszatz becomes the target of the Orc Armada, since all the eruptions have made the planet completely unstable. For either side to continue landing operations, there is no retreating from this side and no way back. Okay? So, because the Orcs can't land on the planet now, and neither can the Astartes, the Kloszatz starts taking a beating.
Right.
On the Kloszatz, it prepares for all-out assault and martyrdom against the attackmen. The void warfare described here reminds me of Ender's Game, where they are moving to destroy the Formic homeworld. Do you know about that one? Yeah? Okay. Quote, "The last of the 18th Fleet came together as the swarm approached. Torpedoes and cannon shells and lances cut the void, incinerating mockeries that dared to take the shape of vessels. And," this is later on in the quote, "the swarm grew thicker. Orc ships collided with each other in their eagerness to take on the enemy, but there were always more." I mean, honestly, it does not sound like a winnable fight.
No, not at all.
But it does sound like one hell of a way to go out, you know?
Absolutely.
The escort Barbican, the frigate Might of Honor, both of them explode in the onslaught of heavy collisions and ordnance batteries as the Kloszatz plows forward, shredding its void shields and venting atmosphere. Okay? So, once you lose your void shields in something this close, it's down to the wire. You know, like the knives are out now. They're having a hard time doing almost anything to the attack moon, and they launch one final salvo of bombardment torpedoes towards Antium to buy some time for the forces on the ground as much as they can before losing all steering. So they're like headed towards the attack moon. As they're angling, they see the orc side of the field. Just launch what we got. You know, they know they're doomed here.
Yeah.
So they're going to try and put hurt on the orcs. The engines go critical as the Kloszatz reactor burns their engines toward the attack moon, hoping to detonate against it in a massive explosion. We get a descriptor here of how big the Kloszatz is. It is reported here that it is in excess of 24 kilometers long.
Holy shit, dude.
Okay? And again, battleships are big, you know?
Yeah.
For reference, the length of a standard Imperial-class Star Destroyer is 1.6 kilometers long, and it is often viewed as an immense ship. You know, like when it first came on the screen, it was like you saw that big ass, Corellian cruiser, and everyone was like, "Ooh!" And then, like the Star Destroyer came over, and
Right.
it's seen as a big ship. This thing is like 12 times its size.
Yeah, that math.
Yeah, but not only that, for an even bigger scale here, because I'll know you know this one, right? Even Darth Vader's own Super Star Destroyer, the Executor, right? Was only 19 kilometers long. Okay, this is 5 kilometers longer than that.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's big, right? So the shipmaster of the Klossat's Vathia result, and the final dwindling number of at least 200,000 crew members. And again, this is the dwindling number. Some battleships can have upwards of like 300 to 400 or 500,000 crew. Despite what they do to try and put the hurt on the attack moon, Shipmaster Vathia result and the final dwindling of at least 200,000 crew members of the Klossats are silenced by the bulk of the attack moon. It takes them out.
Man, that's rough.
Yeah. Back down on the surface of Antium, Cassian Vaughn still ain't dead yet, dude. He's wavering in and out of a Susan coma, which is a shutdown state. It's called the Susan membrane. It's in their head. And, what happens, we'll get into it here. But they can go into this state where their bodies boost survivability at the cost of being completely incapacitated while they try to work overtime to heal or bleed toxins.
Okay.
But finally, he pulls himself up, looking around at the utter devastation of Antium. As he assesses his own forces, the shouts and the cries of an orc wah are heard getting closer and closer as Vaughn tries to rally the Astartes once more into a defensible formation. As they start fighting against the curve of the volcano, the big boss shows up.
Right.
The chieftain of this particular wah down here is described as massive as he charges towards Lord Commander's position, crushing legionaries in his path. So he's trampling them, and they're like 9-10 feet tall. But Cassian Vaughn ain't no bitch, right? He orders a fighting retreat as he goes one-on-one with the chieftain using his power sword and combi bolter with Artellus Numion at his side. The only problem is the orc chieftain is incredibly fast. This boy is painted red, okay? So he fast, all right?
Right.
So much so that in a few short strides, Vaughn is separated from Numion, and the beast has him hoisted up over its head in a powerful pneumatic claw. Bro's getting the clamps! He's getting the clamps! Quote, "It leapt after him, plunging partway down the slope. It snatched at Vaughn with the power claw, seizing him around the waist as it landed on the upturned Typhon. It pinned his arms to his side, squeezed, and suddenly a mountain chain was crushing his torso."
Good Lord.
Okay. It is not looking good. As Vaughn's vision goes red and blurry, we see another lava wave here just plowing down the hill, and it slams into the chieftain, carrying him away from the wounded and broken Lord Commander. Cassian Vaughn is carried away to the mountaintop from here, but many believe he will never fight again, regardless of how much he may want to.
Yeah, that was a hell of a beating.
Yeah. As they pump him full of combat stims and adrenal fluids, he attends a briefing of his officers left after the last push on the Antium War. They relay to him that the orc chieftain is still on the field. So, bro took a wave of lava. He is not dead. He's wounded. He's wounded. But he's not dead.
Heard 3 turns.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, he's just wounded right now. The orcs really sound just hella terrifying like this, right? In later books and in 40K, they are almost just like comical with a few exceptions. But the orcs in 30K and the Horus Heresy series are truly something else from what I've seen. And I really marked this up to the fact that before a little thing called Olinor, which we'll get into, the galaxy was majority controlled by the orcs. So like humanity left Terra.
Mhm.
One of the first big things they fought was orcs. They were in many ways the apex predator. Tyranids don't exist right now. I mean, they do, but you won't see one. Well, you won't see one yet.
Right.
They're more a 40k thing. But in 30k, the orcs are the biggest Xenos threat, for sure. Outside of like other monsters. And there's this epicness that 30k has to it where they're like actually fighting monsters. So humanity is just like literally just figuring out how to kill them. And it's pouring its own resources in to test the mettle of these creatures in open war. So like they haven't figured out how to deal with the orcs yet. There are ways to deal with orcs for sure, but an orc war descending on a planet is pretty much it for that planet. Like there will always be orcs on it now because of how they reproduce. You have to cleanse the atmosphere for it to not have orcs on it anymore. So it's hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard. And they don't know any of this yet. They're just fighting these things. They're like, how the fuck are these things still alive? The sit rep that the Lord Commander hears from his officers is demoralizing. The Void War above is completely lost. All Imperial ships are destroyed as far as they know. The Colossus sacrificed itself trying to buy time, but the attack moon has once again started dropping forces on the far side of the volcanic chain. It's almost like all of it's happened for nothing. In the wake of his utter mind-numbing pain and forcing himself to remain out of the Susan coma, Lord Commander Vaughn gives command of the battlefield to Artellus Numion. Just as everyone is ready to depart, a vid screen chimes and all attention is turned to an incoming frequency. Someone has come out of the warp.
Ooh,
all right?
Friendly, I hope.
As Vulkan and his new legion arrive in the system, they are assessing the situation and Vulkan is impressed. The Dragon Warriors have held the entirety of the Orc force at Antium and spared the rest of the Terras system from being taken over. A few of his officers grumble about how much better they think they could have done in this situation, but Vulkan deflects this and turns it into a learning moment. He doesn't want anything like that. He tells all the assembled officers that the defeat of the Orcs and the rescue of the Dragon Warriors are equal in their priority. So you can't do one without the other. He makes it an order that they are to do both as a challenge to test everyone's mindset. Because again, he wants both parts of the Legion to learn from each other and meld. He doesn't want them to be at odds. So he has to be a strong leader in order to affect these shifts in the mindset. The Salamanders set their sights on the attack moon to cripple the Orc forces. As they examine it, however, Vulkan makes a reserved discovery. Upon the face of the attack moon, there is a sizable scar, which they observe to be a wreckage. Vulkan lets them know that it looks like a battleship. And at the time of the original 18th Legion's departure from Terra, there was only one battleship the fleet had at its disposal. The room sort of falls silent here for the loss of the Colossus as they realize how much the Orcs outpower them. Like all of them are like, oh, I could have done better. I could have done this. I could have done that. And Vulcan's like, that, scar in the side of it is the wreck of one of our battleships. So shut the fuck up. But I'm pleased to say here that the Colossus will play a part in the intended doom of the attack moon. Vulkan and the Salamanders put together a plan of attack. Vulkan rallies his troops for their assault by unveiling some archaeotech. Do you know what archaeotech means?
Tech that's been dug up?
Yeah, like old-ass technology, right?
Okay.
It's archaeotech they have brought with them from the annals of the Unification Wars. A termite called the Spear of Fire. Do you know what a termite is?
It's a bug. Eats wood.
Dude, you're a fucking termite. Anyways, it's essentially like the drill rigs from Gears of War 2.
Okay.
Where they take the fight to the Locust Hives, but it's huge. Like, huge.
Well, everything's big in Warhammer. So.
Well, this was the thing earlier that took up several cave systems. This was it.
Heard.
Vulkan tells us that this drill rig can hold 1,000 legionaries.
That's a lot.
Oh, yeah. And his ass can be in there. All right? So it's big. It's also been equipped with thrusters to shoot out into space and then burrow into targets. So this thing is going to take them to the surface of the attack moon and pop them out at its heart or close enough to cripple the moon. That's the plan so far.
Hurt? That's no moon.
That is no moon. Not only that, but he tells the story of the Spear of Fire as it actually relates to the Klostzats very ominously. It turns out the Klostzats was named after a city that the Emperor conquered on Terra during the Unification Wars. It was located in the Caucasus Wastes. Okay? So in the Caucasus mountain chain. All right? Before leaving out on the Great Crusade, the Emperor, captured this settlement. The Emperor sent the 18th out in termites, just like the Spear of Fire, to break the stalemate of the siege around the city. The Emperor feared them lost during the fight, as the Earth had some pretty messed up tectonic shifts.
Yeah.
But they emerged from the side of a volcano that towered over the unprotected part of the city of Klostzats and gained his favor once more. So that's the history of this thing, is that the Emperor used it at one point during the Unification Wars to take out a city named Klostzats. So it's ominous, right, that now after all these years, these two names are coming back together in another fight.
Yeah.
As the Salamander's fleet, led by a Gloriana-class battleship, Flamerot. You know what a Gloriana class is, right?
No.
These are the big ones. So there are like 22 of them that have ever been built in the current setting of 30K. Every legion has one.
Okay.
One. We'll get to that.
Yeah. I was just like, math ain't mathing.
Well, yes. And the Emperor has one himself. He wants a cheeky little Gloriana-class battleship, The Emperor has one. But, there's 22 of them. They're huge. These ships, these ships have like 1 million crew on them. They're big. And there actually is one in the current, there's several in the current setting of 40K. A lot of them get destroyed in the Horus Heresy. Spoiler alert. But most of them survive into the present setting. They're a big deal. They are some of the largest ships that humanity has ever created. The Gloriana-class battleship that Vulkan owns is called the Flamerot. So as the Salamander fleet led by the Gloriana-class battleship Flamerot harry and kite the outer formations of the Ork fleet, the Spear of Fire slips through the waves of ships with great success as it makes its way to the surface of the attack moon. And I really want to highlight just how awesome this vehicle is and how easy they are cutting through this formation here. I really think you're going to love this quote.
Okay.
Might make you a Salamanders fan if you already aren't one. As the termite Spear of Fire just flies like a dart towards the attack moon, an Ork ship notices it and engages it with carronades and lance shots. Let's just say they don't stand a chance. Okay? Quote, the Ork ship was coming directly at the machine. The termite was armed, but its las cannons and twin-linked heavy bolters, which would be devastating against infantry and armor on the ground, were futile against a void ship. Tekel engaged the termite's drill head. A rapid vibration ran through the bulkheads and the deck. It set Vulkan's teeth on edge, but it was also a satisfying sound. It was powerful. It drew from the entire length and strength and mass of the termite. It was not just the spin of the drill head that would strike the enemy. It was all the momentum of the termite.
That's pretty badass, not gonna lie.
This thing hits and just wrecks house, right? It bores through the Ork ship and shoots out the other side, barely a degree off course.
That's pretty crazy.
Just straight through the other side of the ship. The Spear of Fire strikes the attack moon, burrowing through the wreckage and damage left by the Klostzats. Their sacrifice used and honored by this strike. So where the Klostzats hit it, they just go right in through the back of the Klostzats into the fucking moon. Okay?
Okay.
Everyone on the Klostzats is dead. Don't worry about them. But it just goes straight through it. Yeah. As the news of new void warfare begins to trickle down to the bruised and broken remnants of the Dragon Warriors, they look for a way to hold out until reinforcements can arrive, but that could be hours.
Mm-hmm.
In this massive sea of burning attrition warfare. First Captain Artellus Numion looks for a way to do some damage. Working with some Mechanicum elements that they have with them, they notice a magma pocket just below the surface of the plane that would do massive, irreparable damage to the orc side of the front. The catch is, because there's always a catch, right? The catch is they have to detonate it at the source manually with seismic charges.
Like a hell bomb.
Yeah. He forms up a squad to go and do the deed himself. I want to point out something here.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up near the end of this book realizing something. Out of every book we've done so far, and I'm just going to take a very small second to talk about this, it's a lot that I'm writing, right? Like, I want you to get the feeling that you read the book, okay? It's not just a review where I go, oh, this book did really good, and we're over in like 5 minutes. We're going through this in hours. This is the first book that we've gotten to, and I'm sure there'll be other books because we've described things too much, or we've talked about it enough to where I don't want to do it again. But this book, from here on out, you're going to hear a lot on Vulkan's side. You're not going to hear a lot of what happens down on the planet because it's just so forgettable. There are some other characters, there's some side stories, there's some other things that go on, but nothing stuck out so much that it warrants more than on these paragraphs that I'm writing, the Vulkan part of the story is like, and then right here, that as the news of the new Void Warfare trickles down, whatever, that's like this big, and that's an entire shift over to Artellus Numion's side and him like talking about what they should do and all this other stuff. But I'm just giving you the gist because, to be honest, the ground warfare side of this book is the weakest part, in my opinion. Okay. I don't 100% agree that this book is bad, like some other people have stated. I think that this part of it was a slog to get through. Mm-hmm. So because this is a book about Vulkan, I've also just decided to highlight the Vulkan side of this. Artellus Numion will have his own day, and Cassian Vaughn, you'll see more of him. Okay. But there's a lot of it that I sort of just let go by the wayside because I would honestly, if you're looking at listening to this book on Audible, Connor, I'd get it for you. It's like not that much, maybe $15. It's such a good listen. I think it's 6 hours long, but it's such a good listen. It's just it will not stick out to you as much, in my opinion, as what happens with Vulkan. Right. So I've just chosen to sacrifice it because it's not necessary, in my opinion, or it doesn't stick out as much. So cutting back away from Artellus Numion here, the Spear of Fire slams into the attack moon and it begins to do what it does best. It bores, dude. I mean, this thing is technically impressive. Launched out of a torpedo bay, capable of holding 1,000 10-foot tall Space Marines and a Primarch, right? This thing shoots through space like a bullet and slams home to do what it does best. A total Warhammer moment here. Mm-hmm. Like, only in Warhammer. As it breaks through the crust of the attack moon, we get our first description here of what is inside of this thing. And man, is it chaotic. Quote, and then with a crunch and a disorienting lurch, the Spear of Fire was through the crust and into the body of the monster. This region of the interior of the attack moon was hardly less dense than the crust. It was a maze of tunnels and constructs, a collision of the nonsensical work of the orcs and the battered wreckage of the ships they had salvaged and welded into the massiveness that was their base. It was a madman's idea of a hive, a visual cacophony of scrapyard, ruin, and frenzied construction. The gravity here was incongruent. Inside the Spear of Fire, Vulkan felt himself pulled in different directions from moment to moment, as if the artificial gravity generator of a dozen ships were all functioning at once and across purposes.
Oh my god.
Dude, like the inside of this thing sounds barely contained within itself.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the outer crust, this thing might just be flying on hopes and belief.
I mean, isn't that what the orcs fight on anyway?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. That's orc bread and butter right there, boy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's harder than concrete and steel, bro. But to Vulkan, it's total weakness to see this. Vulkan says an ice-cold line here as he thinks about how pleased the orcs are to see them up here where they don't have to work for it, and the fight comes to them almost like a reward.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, I have brought you the gift of battle. It will not please you. He's like, surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm pretty much.
Mic drop. Honestly, I think these orcs are going to be very happy until they are destroyed, honestly, because Vulkan is a machine when it comes to destruction, as we've already seen in Mercy of the Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I mean, it's a hard line for sure. That's a hard ass line right there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it's a hard ass line. As the termite continues to bore its way, orcs are piling onto it, trying to break it open. But the old machine holds fast. They just can't seem to get inside before getting scraped off as this thing just keeps burrowing. As the spear of fire breaks through the ceiling of one chamber, a flood of thousands of greenskin surge and churn to liquid under the termite's bulk, so much so that it loses traction and purchase, grinding them.
Grind.
It's time to come out and fight, and it's here we get a view of Vulkan's armaments currently at his first engagement as the leader of the Salamander's Legion.
Mm-hmm.
He has 2 weapons that are listed, 2 of them,
Okay.
as being forged entirely by his own hands, it says. One is a very large plasma pistol called Anvil's Light.
Heard.
Okay? It's described here as, quote, it contained the fury of a sun.
That's pretty hardcore.
Oh, yeah. Like, damn, dude. You know, and you know the plasma pistol is like one of my favorite weapons.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, Vulkan has Night Forged, a power blade, almost described here as a Zweihander or a bastard sword. Quote, as long as a mortal is tall.
Good lord.
So it's anywhere between 5.6 and 6 feet tall, this fucking sword. Right? And it's just a single sword.
Yeah.
You know, it's a single hander for him. Because that sword's like in his full battle armor, he's probably around 12 to 15 feet tall. So that sword's not that big, right? For him. It'd be huge for us. He starts slaying, dude. Like he's the Doom Slayer in here, and these orcs are being brought from hell. In a matter of minutes, they have significantly thinned the ranks of the greenskin horde, described as, quote, the tens of thousands that had been in the hall, more than half were gone.
That's pretty crazy.
Vulkan and his gunners were slaughtering them faster than they could arrive. And like, damn, that's impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It also goes to show you that much like the clones from Star Wars, as the waves of better equipped Astartes join the galaxy, they really learn and adapt and grow their technology and tactical knowledge. You know, these Astartes are doing incredibly well, whereas the original Legion down on the planet that were equipped with the stuff that they had originally launched off of old Earth with, they're not doing as hot versus these current enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But because the other Legion is basically taking its licks right now, Vulkan has been provided better things because they're like, you're the second wave. You know, the first waves get fucking slaughtered, basically. And so their stuff is way better. And we saw this with the Legio Contagious, remember? When they went and fought in Molan Sin. They were in like leather armor, you know, fucking basic swords and axes and shit. Now, after Molan Sin, they came back with like power armor and fucking electric swords and like all sorts of shit, right? Same thing with Vulkan. Same thing with Vulkan and his boys. Vulkan fights his way back into the Spear of Fire as it breaks through into the deeper layers, but not before we see him use this plasma pistol. And I just had to give it a quote, right? It sounds truly exquisite here. And you know the plasma pistol is my favorite weapon, so I had to, you know, I got giddy when I saw the descriptor here.
Sure.
Quote, he stopped just before the shrieking drill head. He changed the setting on Anvil's Light and held down the trigger. aiming at the tidal surge of orcs. The plasma pistol charge built up to the extent that the ornately wrought weapon trembled with the heat contained inside. It reached the point of self-destruction, but an instant before its end occurred, Vulkan unleashed the shot. Killing daylight erupted in the hall. A volcano roared in anger, and a fireball engulfed the orcs before the termite. It left nothing in its wake, reducing the very ash of the bodies to atoms. Hell fucking yeah, dude. Plasma weapons are my fucking favorite. And this thing is a killer, dude. The termite digs deeper still here, but the leader of the orcs is surprisingly chasing them as it burrows further. As they cut through into the heart, they fall into another chamber. This one's a trap. The termite is grabbed by a massive claw mover here, and its movement is arrested as Vulkan dismounts and gets ready to confront the described 100,000 orc horde here. As Vulkan and the orc chieftain square off here, it seems something is making the orcs afraid to not attack the space marines here, and Vulkan is curious as to what could make a creature like this afraid. As Vulkan strikes the final blow to the chieftain, the moon thunders and shakes with the sound of artillery.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh's right. As Artellus Numion detonates the magma fissure, all hell breaks loose on the surface of Antium as the orc side and the forward team are almost completely decimated from the overpouring and explosive force of the detonation. It kills 2 of Numion's team here. As lava pours like a river across the battlefield, he notices the greenskins are in full retreat because the opening of the fissure has almost completely divided the plain between the 2 sides. This part is very drawn out and repetitive, and I will say this part of the book again, got a little hard to pick out anything that was distinct. If you want to listen to it, do it yourself. We're going to go back to Vulkan. The orcs are not the smartest beings in the galaxy, right? As we well know. They're not the smartest. Shocker. The artillery that Vulkan hears upon killing the chieftain turns out to be gun platforms, cannons, and crude bomb lobbers like fucking trebuchets. That the orcs have turned in on the chamber itself. And they're you gotta love them, dude. Like, honestly, you gotta love them.
They's on the insides. Turn the guns around.
Yeah, exactly. So they've turned them in on the chamber, and they're starting to bombard the Spear of Fire. Crazily enough, none of these are heavy caliber enough to really do that much damage. But Vulkan determines that without it being able to move, they must advance the rest of the way on foot for the rest of the 2-kilometer journey to the core of the attack moon. 8 companies led by 8 praetors are unleashed here.
Yeah.
Again, they total up to about 1,000 marines. There are 7 great companies, so I don't know why it says that 8 companies led by 8 praetors here, when there's only, as far as I know, 7 great companies. So maybe the other praetor here, you know, we'll get into that. I'll just say he has 8 praetors here that he's going to unleash with their marines as they open the hatch and split off to push their way towards the core. The orcs are ready for a proper scrap. Praetor is significant here because a praetor is actually a very significant rank designation. When you hear praetor, it means a warrior that is of such a high rank and standing that they are second only to the Primarch or their status designation.
Heard.
Other legions call their praetors different things, or they denote them as blank number captain, such as first Captain Artellus Numion would be considered a praetor. Okay. I mean, he's like without equal. So every great company has a captain. Like in the Luna Wolves, it's first Captain Ezekiel Abaddon. They say Ezekiel, but I refuse to. It's Ezekiel Abaddon. Right? Or Tarek Torgadon, or Garviel Loken, right? Like those would be captains. They're praetors. as their military rank designates, but they get called other things. Each of these guys are the leaders of the companies that make up their entire legion. So that's really significant, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's so significant, in fact, that even the orcs understand this. They see these guys. And one thing that I want to point out, in 40K, the Mark 10, the Mark 9, not so good looking in my opinion, okay? Mark 3, Mark 4, oh my God. Such a better looking armor, and it's drip, dude. Like captains and officers in 30K, they are just decked the fuck out compared to what they look like in 40K, right? And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just to go over the top, but let me tell you, it's more significant for sure. So the orcs understand as they see these guys just got crap all over them, right? Like medals and fetishes and all sorts of stuff all over them.
Mm-hmm.
The orcs understand this, and we now see what it was their assumed chieftain was scared of. A gargantuan orc war boss shows himself here to try and crush this incursion himself, and he is truly described as a monster. Quote, a gargantuan orc warlord thundered through the breach in the wall. It shoved aside the smoking ruin of cannons and trampled smaller orcs beneath its feet. It glared at Vulkan and loosed a roar fit to bring down the ceiling of the cavernous hall. Its body was encased in armor so thick it looked as if the monster were wearing tanks.
Oh my God.
This is a big Bowie, dude. I mean, this almost sounds like the descriptor of a Krork. Do you know what a Krork is?
No.
We'll get into that some other time. But this guy is massive, and most definitely an orc. Vulkan sends the Legion away as he tells them he will deal with this threat himself. They have other targets, and he doesn't want them to get bogged down here, so he's going to just do this himself.
Okay.
As Vulkan readies Anvil's light for another cataclysmic shot here, we really get to see how crazy this orc is. He hits its center mass with the fuck off beam of God here, and it barely does a thing. Quote, Vulkan fired Anvil's light. The shot enveloped the frontal armor of the beast. It melted through a foot of dense metal and exposed and burned the corded flesh beneath. A shot that would have evaporated a score of the warlord's underlings did not even slow it down.
That's pretty hardcore.
Bro, are we cooked right now? You know what I'm saying? Are we cooked? Is Vulkan cooked? He might be cooked. You know?
He might be.
The two devolve into heavy melee as the warlord manages to crack the outer shell of the spear of fire like it's a big acorn. He as you know, they've been getting hit with artillery. Just been turned in to shoot this thing. Nothing. This guy comes in with a hammer and like breaks the armor in one hit.
Hurt.
As Cassian Vaughn looks out over the devastation in the orc retreat, he is worried about Artellus Numion and is trying his best to reach the away team that set the charges. As the mechanical elements reach Numion, Cassian is extremely relieved and impressed by the time they have been bought. He will send a Thunderhawk. Again, that's all I got out of this section. There's more, but this is all I got.
Mm-hmm.
Our attention shifts here to a legionary named Wrath Shomar, who is a praetor of 6th Company. Based on the lore that I know, a good little tidbit of lore here, that would make him the head of a reserve company known as the Flamehammers.
Okay.
They are essentially a fast-paced, frontline company of greener members, which makes little sense seeing how they are reserve. They're a reserve company whose entire... Though reserve company is only ever loosely used in Warhammer, so maybe the Salamander's idea of a reserve company is a company that can be sent in first to soften up a target for a more tactile company to come in. It's hard to know currently, but I just thought it was weird that they're a reserve company of members that are intentionally sent in to test their mettle. Like they're like wave 1, but reserve. Which anyways. We shift our attention to Wrath Shomar here as he storms the tunnels and warrens of the attack moon. As they are charging through, they are pre-firing corners, tossing grenades into blind spots, generally being the type of players that make you rage quit FPS games, right?
Yeah.
Wrath spots something to his right through the holes in the passageway. A cannon that has been loaded with an ordnance that is too large for its barrel goes off and detonates the passageway in a large explosion of shrapnel, which collapses several passageways around them. Here they are, 1 kilometer from the core, and the fighting is thick. It's stated here that they are charging head first into the orcs with bullets and blades at the ready. As they pop out into the sideways bulk of a ship that used to be a human freighter, they see only a few thousand orcs awaiting them, and they remark how Vulkan seems to have done the impossible. Okay?
Yeah. That
being drawing the orcs away from the attack moon as its greatest challenger, and that's saying something. Like, he's almost like sponge soaking up all of the orcs that are just converging on him right now. And he's taking the brunt of the entire force of orcs. And again, there were millions of them on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's killing, dude. Now they are only running into a few thousand at a time here. So Vulkan and the Termite are killing or have killed hundreds of thousands so far. Wrath Shomar and his company fight on through what I can only describe to you here as a demolition derby.
Okay.
Oh, boy. So the hold here is so large that there is space enough here for a crude orc pit stop for vehicles. Some absolute boondoggery is about to happen next.
Okay.
With the legionaries under Wrath Shomar having to fight their way through orcs trying to run them over and bumper car them together. They're in what's described as monster trucks, and the only way forward is to go through this bay, and the orcs are just getting in cars to try and run them over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hurt.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's complete and utter chaos here. Quote, they turned the cargo bay into a maelstrom of careening vehicles as they tried to crush the legionary under their spiked wheels.
Pretty hardcore.
As Wrath and his company move through the hall, killing and mangling orcs in their trucks, we see them lose a few of their own number here in some pretty nasty ways. Razak is impaled on a crane-mounted spiked wrecking ball that swings into him and crushes him against a stack of burning wreckage, dragging him back along as he falls apart with the G-forces.
Holy shit.
Tabel is ground under the wheels of 2 orc trucks as Unash is impaled on the grill spikes of one of the same trucks, driven away like a bloody trophy, it says.
Holy shit. Okay.
But the orcs just ramp it up again and again and again. We even see a group of legionaries go down here, described as a group of 5 legionaries had no choice at all to evade. They were in the center of the cargo bay, too close to the trucks, and had seconds only to turn and stand their ground. Hurling shells and grenades into the enemy, it was not enough. The vehicles rode over them, impaled them on spikes, and smashed them flat with wrecking balls. It is Mad Max fucking levels of hellscape in here, as Wrath Shomar orders them to form a wedge and try and get through the bay.
Pretty hardcore, not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, it's fucked in here, you know?
Metal.
The perspective shifts again here to a praetor who is pretty well known later in the series, Calmera.
Mm-hmm.
His story, however, will be told a little later, but for right now, he and his company are making progress down an inert ancient lava tube set in the bowels of the original planetoid the attack moon was built on. So they've gotten through the fucking scrap heap, and they actually popped out into the planetoid that's under here. They are moving with such speed that when they inevitably run into the greenskins, they literally run into them. They break bones, they're plowing bodies and slamming them into walls to kill them with force. Such is the strength of a space marine.
Mhm.
They are less than 500 meters from the target at the center of the attack moon as the story flits back to the battle with Vulkan and the Warlord. As the two continue to match each other blow for blow, the shell of the termite spear of fire cracks and promethium gushes out all over Vulkan and the Warlord. Do you know what promethium is?
No.
We've talked about in Warhammer, everything kind of devolves into one thing. Like, it's not a cell phone, it's the Vox. It's not a speaker, it's the Vox. It's not, a microphone, it's the Vox caster.
Yeah.
Promethium is space gas, right? Like, promethium is in everything. Promethium is just the word that, like, we use the word gas or fuel. It's that. It's just fuel. It's dozens or even hundreds of different chemical ingredients that make different forms of fuel. There is no diesel promethium or jet promethium or unleaded promethium. It's most definitely leaded, right? But
it's lead-based.
space gas, right? That's what promethium is. Promethium is also fuel inside of flamers. Promethium is also inside grenades. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just combustible material. Okay?
Okay.
Just as you expect what happens next, the whole place engulfs in fire and explosions. Raitan loses sight of Vulkan amidst the apocalyptic fireball, and it's definitely distressed, to say the least. Somehow, and I really don't know how, because it describes the termite, the industrial claw, and the surrounding machinery, somehow Tekel and the company that were inside the termite are alive. They just got out somehow. It didn't say, but Raitan fights over to Tekel, and now no one can see Vulkan until a flicker of flames reveals where he is. Bro, where do you think Vulkan is?
Above.
He and the orc are fighting in the middle of the jet fuel conflagration of promethium that is the burning wreck of the Spear of Fire. So I really got to give it to this orc warlord. This fight has taken so long, and Vulkan is still fighting this orc, which is probably the longest I have ever seen a fight against a Primarch take in these books so far. This is one freaking impressive orc. Raitan looks on and likens Vulkan and the warlord as to how the Legion is being tempered by the fires of this battle into a stronger semblance, which is a cool thing to envision. I agree with Raitan here. Like, he's watching his father and this orc burn together in the fires of the forge, and they're hitting each other like hammer blows. He's saying it.
Yeah.
I agree with Raitan, but they need to win in order for this forging to mean anything, right? He sees now the plan Vulkan is fighting with. He can totally take this orc. Totally can. But in keeping the fight going, he keeps the orcs interested in being on the moon and away from landing on the surface. So when the time comes for the moon to collapse, it will take all the orcs with it and turn their interest into their doom. Mic drop moment. As the battle comes to a head, when the orc warlord throws a hammer blow that flattens Vulkan onto his back, Vulkan spends a final moment to taunt the greenskin, remarking how it isn't over for the orc until he has truly broken Vulkan. He's like, hit me again, motherfucker. And Vulkan's actually on his back here. He actually got flattened by the blow. Okay? He taunts this orc, and the orc is like, it's going to oblige him, dude. Hauling the hammer back over its head, it arcs its spine for the blow to end it. And Vulkan, quick as a smith, striking against an anvil, thrusts Nightforge up into the ribs of the orc, driving the tip up and up through the ribs, neck, and chin into the skull, dude. Good night. Right?
Bird.
He finishes the warlord by striking off its head, holding it high up, and bellowing, "With me!" Dude, he's fucking going at it, dude. Yeah. Into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war. This is the Legion's mantra. You will hear this so many times. And to see it come in for the first time here is like great. We shift again to Wrath Shomar and his company as they place seismic charges, melt-a-bombs, and crack grenade bundles at key points inside support girders of the attack moon. Whatever is coming next is going to be a catastrophic explosion when these things go off. And I know based off of both of us playing Space Marine 2, the explosions here seem less volatile. You know, like crack grenades are just like standard grenades or whatever. But crack grenades and melt-a-bombs from that game are way less powerful because it's a game, right? They're way less powerful than they are in the lore. So trust me when I tell you, this is going to be a big boom, dude. A devastating boom.
Heard.
Nevertheless, it is time to exfil. But where are all the orcs? They seem to have fallen silent since Vulkan let out his rally cry. This puts Wrath on edge. He needs to know where they have all gone as he follows the sound of some retreating orcs. After charging down the tunnel, Kalmyra finds a side passage connected to a huge tunnel that acts as an arterial alley of movement between key parts of the attack moon. It is full of greenskins in a full retreat.
Yeah.
Only this isn't a retreat. What do you think they're doing?
Let's see. What would an orc do? I would assume they would do something along the lines of gathering together and then convincing themselves that they're going to win.
That's pretty orcish for sure. They are moving somewhere with a purpose, somewhere to get off the attack moon. Just as soon as the orcs are bunched up, going in the opposite direction, Kalmyra springs his trap from above. Raitan is firing from cover to take out as many orcs as possible. He is fired up by Vulkan's rally and is fighting for the fury of his father as they force the orcs on the back foot. Vulkan chastises this line of thinking by claiming, quote, "No, orcs do not surrender," right? Because Raitan's like, they're retreating, and Vulkan's like, they don't do that, right? They do not do that unless they're forced to. This is something else. As Vulkan leaps down into the surge of orcs, they fear him. All right? And this is something you won't see a whole lot. They are afraid of Vulkan. They have seen him kill their greatest warlord, and they know they are beaten. But this does not stop Vulkan as he turns them into corpses quickly, alongside a charge from his salamander sons. Finally, the call is made. All 7 wayward companies have placed their charges, and the site is secured. And see how I said 7 here? It says that there were 7 companies now, but it said there were 8 companies in an earlier part of this book. There aren't. There are 7. I think it might be a typo, or maybe like a lore snippet that got messed up there, but there are 7 companies. Vulkan still feels like there is more to this as he hears the greenskins are heading to the outer surface of the attack moon. They're just going to open a door and walk out. And honestly, dude, I cut out a lot of it, right? Like, because there's descriptors. There's descriptors of the orc vessels. A lot of them are just open to the void, bro. And they just believe that if they cut into these ships enough, that the air on the inside is enough for them to breathe. Orcs don't really need air. Like they don't know what it is, right? Like it just is what it is for them, dude. Yeah. This thing is not sealed. There's no way it's sealed, right? It's just
it can't be.
They don't care, right? They're like it's fairy dust, you know. It's fucking it's just whatever. He tells his praetors to continue to harry and fight the orcs, get them drawn back into conflicts so they stay on the attack moon. He's trying to bait them back into attacking them. Raitan, Tekel, and the rest with Vulkan find that as they continue to hit hard and pick up their attacks, they are all beginning to laugh in the face of this. So again, Dragon Warriors not doing so hot. fighting a total attrition war. These guys rallying. And yeah, they've lost some Astartes. It's better for them to die right now than what's going to happen later, for sure. Because still they have this dream of the Emperor like winning in the galaxy, and they're all going the same way. That's neither here nor there. But we know how this ends, right? But despite this, they're starting to laugh in the face of what's going on right now. Back on the Flame Rot, Vulkan's flagship, they continue to make a graveyard of the Orc fleet over Antium. We see through their observatory vision the true power of the Orcs and what they have that makes them unique as a race. As the bridges or captains of the Orc vessels are destroyed, they simply fall apart or unmake themselves. Do you know why that is?
Because the belief system doesn't work.
Yeah, because no one's believing in that vessel anymore. And they don't know, like the humans don't know that, right? You can see that here in this quote. It is as if, quote, reality had suddenly awakened to the affront of these vessels. There is way more lore to this than what I'm about to say, but the Orcs stand out in that their belief in something is what gives it true, tangible, physical status. So most of these vessels, like you said, most of these vessels are being held together with the idea that they just do, right?
Right.
That's just what they do. And as soon as the Orcs stop believing because they're dead, right? They fall apart. They fall apart. I honestly don't think that humanity ever really fully gets onto this understanding, but it is well known in the lore because you see the perspective of the Orc side. I'm not even sure in 40K. It might be. Comment below if you have a snippet that I can read that proves to me that they know this. But as far as I know, humanity never understands this. Even in 40K, they're like cutting some of the Orc weapons apart and they realize that it's just a tin can with some nuts and bolts on the inside.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I've heard of.
It doesn't have ammo. It doesn't have fucking springs. It doesn't have a mechanism. It's just like it looks like a gun and it shoots and they don't have to reload. It's like it just has bullets because that's what guns do, So I don't think that they ever come onto this, but that is what happens here. You will see more of this later on down the road. Despite all this chaotic bombardment, the Flame Rot and support ships are going to have to try and extract the entire new legion from the attack moon. This is a snake run right here, dude. As they get close in a slow, methodical trudge, they launch all 100 of their gunships in an attempt to recall the legion back aboard. This is an incredibly risky maneuver, to say the least, and it is going to require full commitment of their assets into the densest part of the battlesphere. As these gunships plunge into the shaft bored by the Spear of Fire, we get a glimpse here of how big it was that Thunderhawk gunships can barrel down the tunnel it left behind to fly in and grab the Legion.
Oh my God.
Okay? That's how big massive. It was. That's how big it was. So even running a fighting withdrawal, Vulkan stands and stays to fight on until all of his sons are taken back out of the attack moon. He continues to fight, slashing and blasting in a wild melee as he continues to taunt the Orcs into charging him. But the horde is beginning to thin even now. Something is calling the greenskins away to the surface of Antium. It is time to go and punish the attack moon on the way out. Mm-hmm. As it's thinning, he's like, we have to retreat because we gotta detonate this thing. Because if they're thinning, they're leaving, and we have to do that before they do.
Of course.
As the fleet is clearing away from the attack moon, Vulkan and his fleet captains watch as all across the surface of the attack moon, doors and bays are opening. Like it's described as like hundreds of craters are just like opening, right?
Yeah.
Vulkan and his fleet captains notice inside massive drop pod sized orc escape pods are beginning to ready themselves for launch. Vulkan readies his blink click charges and sets them off. Mm-hmm. Do you know what a blink click means? Do you know what that means?
I'm assuming that you click a button and a light blinks and it goes off.
No. It's even more complex than that. So inside the helmet of the Astartes, the user interface, the UI.
Mhm.
Their tech is so advanced that like as they're seeing things, you can use blinks to scan. Like if you like double click left eye when you're you'll zoom in on something, or if you right click, it's basically like a cursor. So like head tracker. Every Space Marine has a head tracker inside their helmet that follows their eyes, and so you can open up a channel to like private channel to someone, or you can like look up statistics, or you can like fucking zoom in on a target all by blink clicking. So Vulkan has an interface in his that is set for these charges, and all he has to do is like blink click yes. Okay, that's what blink click means. It's pretty cool tech. Quote, seconds passed, and then there's a pause. Right, I actually have like 6 dots here on the script. And then the bombs went off so deep inside, it seemed at first that nothing had changed. Then agony racked the attack moon's form. Crevices spider-webbed across the surface. The crust vibrated. A dropship climbed unsteadily from a trimmer-gripped launch bay, slammed into the side, overturned, and fell back in. The shaking increased. The orc base trembled like a madman's fist. Fire erupted from the fissures. She gonna blow, dude. She's gonna blow up. I was like, holy shit, they're describing this so well, right? As the orc base explodes, it sends massive amounts of debris in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I got to pick on here. Okay. This is one of those cartoonish moments I feel like really gave me a chuckle on what is described here just a little bit, but the way it is written is just less grimdark and more happy tree friends.
Okay.
I tell you what, you tell me, as you're imagining what I'm about to start talking about, you tell me when the images I'm going to describe next stop looking like Dragon Ball style animation, as you think about them and start turning into the Looney Tunes, all right?
Okay.
Quote, the crust became a storm of rubble. Fragments the size of frigates rushed for the Thunderhawk. Behind them came the expanding ball of the base's destruction. The gunship jerked, and the pilot fought to maneuver away from the rocks. A vast piece soared past within meters of the Eye of the Furnace. Of course, that's Vulkan's dropship, the Eye of the Furnace. It came so close to Vulkan, he could see the tunnels bored into it like those of an anthill. Orcs fell from the tunnels, some still lived and clung to the edges, their mouths agape in horror and shock.
I think we found the spot.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like as the thing just exploded, there's like a chunk flying past Vulkan's ship, and he's like, he looks out the fucking window, and all of a sudden there's like orcs hanging on the side, like it's just I didn't like that. It made me chuckle for sure, but it's just so like not grimdark. We know that it blew the fuck up, right? It's just funny, dude. And it just goes to show you that they don't need atmosphere because they're like exposed to the void here, just clinging onto the side. Orcs are just fun. It utterly destroys the orc fleet, which was clustered around it so closely. But as Vulkan watches, he sees those same massive spears of debris arcing towards the surface of Antium.
That's not good.
No, it's not. As Numion and his surviving forces fight on down on the surface, we get a rare glimpse here that we don't see much outside the Space Wolves Legion.
Mm-hmm.
Space Marine gallows humor. Do you know that term?
No.
Gallows humor is a joke despite the threat or the certainty of death. So like, gallows humor is like a knight with a spear stuck in his stomach after the end of a battle, laying on the ground, being like, does my face still look okay? Like that's like gallows humor,
Gotcha.
Or like oh, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Like that, like that would be gallows humor, right? Like he's like, you're about to die, but we see some of that. They all look up and see the sky just light up. Quote, the sky had turned red. The clouds were on fire. Salieran laughed. The orcs are coming in for a hard landing, he said. Bro, I would cackle at that shit, no lie. Like, no lie at all. If I heard someone say that, like, oh, they're coming in for a hard landing, that's like chunks are just blowing up the planet around me. I mean, I would cackle for sure. The orbital bombardment of the lava plane here is immensely devastating. Quote, thunder had come to the surface of Antium, and it roared and roared without cease. Despite all this, Numion and the Dragon Warriors are still fighting on and firing at the orcs remaining.
Mm-hmm.
Something even now described as big comes down and strikes the planet. And it must be something real big, because as this is already described with such grand scale, it's big.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, suddenly it was as bright as day. The sun rose over the mountains, ugly and raging at its birth. The light blinded, and then a pillar of fire, kilometers wide, bellowed up into the sky. Ruh-roh, Connor. The planet is racked with cataclysms and volcanic eruptions. The sky turns black here, darkening the atmosphere with so many volcanic eruptions. It is said that the skies here will be stained with this darkness for hundreds of years to come.
Good Lord.
As Cassian Vaughn, Artellus Numion, and the survivors of the Dragon Warriors begin to resign themselves to this being the end, lights of ships approaching send their hopes soaring. It is not night. It is dawn. As Vulkan's dropship, Eye of the Furnace, comes in to land at what's left of the cauldron, the planet is full of eruptions on the orc side. They are completely routed and being consumed in fire and lava. Yet Vulkan sees some fighting happening here on a spar or a jetty that seems to be free of lava flows out on the plain.
Mm-hmm.
They are immensely impressed to see that a few legions are holding back the orc chieftain from earlier on Antium. They're holding him back from getting to the rest of the company's strength with its warriors and thus saving the survivors at the cauldron. Vulkan himself orders the remaining gunships to collect the remaining Dragon Warriors Legion from the cauldron, while his gunship is to set down here to help with killing the chieftain and supporting these wayward legionaries. Before he drops, Raitan confronts his father here, and we see the humbleness of the 18th Legion on full display as he tells Vulkan he was wrong to think the Dragon Warriors were meant to go extinct. He tells his father that he sees it differently now, and he wants to help win and survive just as much as Vulkan does. Finally, the Legion is tempered together and brought in as one ideologically.
Mm-hmm.
Because half the battle is with his own people.
Mm-hmm.
From Numion and Salieran's position, they are holding their own against the chieftain as they hope to buy as much time for the cauldron as they can. As the beast gets the better of Salieran and pins him down for the killing strike, quote, a demigod dropped from the sky.
Big E himself.
No, not Big E.
Oh.
The warrior hit the ground, and his sudden presence had the power of an orbital bombardment. Massive as he was smaller than this orc chieftain, but the force of his being made him seem taller. It's really awe-inspiring when an Astartes sees their father or their Primarch for the first time. This visualization fucking slaps right now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are in complete shock. Not only that, but Numion and Arasis, another legion from the side story, right? You know, see what I mean? Arasis was with them the whole time, but you never heard that name before. Unimportant in my opinion. But They see Tekel and Raitan fighting beside their father, and they see the number 18 on these new arrivals. They see them on the pauldrons and understand now who these newcomers are. As the chieftain tries to attack Vulkan, he gets a greeting himself in the form of a blast from Anvil's light that disintegrates the orc chieftain's hand and weapon, while a stabbing slice from Nightforge takes out the other arm away at the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
The orc that has harried and harassed the dragon warriors up to this point is now completely useless against the might of Vulkan. As the chieftain tries to bellow with rage, Vulkan uses its own power claw, the arm off this thing that he had sliced, the one that he crushed Cassian Vaughn with earlier, to stab it straight into the chest, and then he uses his bolter just on his side. He has a bolter as well. He uses his bolter to just blow its head off. Judgment has fallen for the orcs. As the remaining legionaries rush to Salieran while Vulkan cleans up the last of the orcs, they assess him and see that Salieran is dying. Numion and Raitan kneel next to Salieran, who is staring past them at his newly revealed father. And this is a tender moment. You get a lot of these kind of moments to come. The quote is, "He gazed past Numion to where Vulkan brought destruction to the orcs. His lips twitched, and he whispered, 'I see him.' 'You held your ground, and the Primarch is here now,' Numion told his brother. Raitan crouched on the other side of Salieran. 'You have triumphed,' he said. 'You will be remembered, brother.' Salieran repeats, 'Brother.' Then he died, his eyes shining with thanks."
It's pretty awesome, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good death. We're on the last paragraph here. This is the end of the book. After all the greenskins have been dealt with, the two sides of the 18th Legion come together as one with Vulkan present. They all see each other as brothers and one unit together. As they all drop to their knees before Vulkan, he bids them all to rise. He tells them he is their father, not their ruler. It is he, instead, that kneels before them and honors their mutual sacrifice as warriors and sons. He thanks them, and he bows his head before them. As this comes to a close, however, Vulkan strides past them and towards an apothecary slab. Lord Commander Cassian Vaughn lays before Vulkan and gives him fealty as he humbly transfers command of the Legion to Vulkan. This happens quite a bit, right? And I want to point out this, right? Vulkan just kneeled to his sons upon meeting them and joining the legions for the first time. That's not a common thing. That's crazy. A lot of the other Primarchs, mostly the traitor legions, they did not have good moments with their sons.
Yeah.
But Vulkan kneels before his, which is a big, humbling moment. Vulkan presents the orc chieftain's claw to Cassian Vaughn as a trophy to keep sacred his sacrifice here, and Vaughn tells Vulkan he would still serve him if he could. Vulkan tells him, though, that his duty is not yet at an end. He promises Cassian Vaughn that he will rise again, stronger than ever, in eternal service. And Cassian's story will continue later on. Do you know what happens to Cassian Vaughn?
He becomes a dreadnought.
Probably one of the most significant dreadnoughts in the Legion.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the most significant ones. And keep in mind, this happens with a couple of them. They're known as venerable dreadnoughts, right?
I've heard that before.
Venerable meaning like worthy of honor, or worthy of praise, ancient in ways that are heroic. He becomes a venerable dreadnought. He inhabits a custom-built fucking mech suit, basically, called the Ebon Drake that Vulkan made for him. So his story's not done yet. We'll see him again. As Vulkan turns to the Legion, proud and loud, he tells them they are the newly reformed 18th Legion, and remembers the Emperor here asking him in his mind if he knew this was the moment he was waiting for. He rallies them once more with an enduring quote here. And I didn't make this the quote because it's so cheesy that it's the last fucking sentence. I don't want to do that. Even though I did do that with the short story from last episode, Canticle. In Canticle, the last sentence of the 14-page book here was something along the lines of, I don't know my name, but I have something to do, and when I have finished it, perhaps I will tell you. Right? It's just such a good end line. This is too, but I feel like the quote that we had earlier is really just the point of the book. You will hear most of these words again. He rallies them here once more by with an ending quote here. Behold the furnace. Behold the anvil of war. Behold the flames of rebirth. Hear me, my sons. Hear your name. You are the fireborn. You are the salamanders.
That's pretty hype. Not gonna lie.
And that was Vulkan, Lord of Drakes, by David Annandale.
That's really cool. I like Vulkan.
Yeah. What do you think about that book?
I think it's pretty good from all the parts that I was told about. You know,
Right,
you said
sure.
that there was a lot that was, left out because it's side story stuff. And thinking about it, maybe that might be the part that a lot of people take issue with. So there's a lot of side story that's forgettable, and it's not focused solely on Vulkan.
Well, let me tell you something that I find very strange. Most of the reviews about this book is that it's flat. Okay? And by flat, I mean there's no character development. The story doesn't really go anywhere. I gotta argue that. It totally does.
Yeah, because I see character development in the Astartes themselves.
Yeah.
Between the two, it's like you said, the fighting on here is not just against the orcs, but it's also against its own legion, because they're bickering about how they could have done it better or how they should have done it, and they weren't there.
Yeah.
And once they get over that little bit of ego, it all comes out and it works. It works best.
Yeah, and I think that is valid, right? And that's massive character development. Sure, Cassian Vaughn doesn't really develop as a character. He's just total badass, right? Artellus Numion develops a little bit. You didn't hear much about him, right? Even though I shouted him out at the beginning of this book as the legendary Artellus Numion, right?
Yeah.
This is just the beginning of his story. And he's a Terran born, by the way. Artellus is. So the fact that he becomes like one of the best ones later on is even better, in my opinion. But yeah, I would say that I enjoyed the book. There was a lot of it that, I did. Not a lot. Let's be honest. Probably another 30 or 40 minutes of talking of this could have been me just telling you every minute detail of the extra stuff on the side. But it's not necessary, I'm glad that the story was still there. But if you had taken out from the time the Klossats blew up to coming back to Artellus Numion, watching, the clouds part and Vulkan comes back, right? If you had cut out every bit of that of the side story, which I did, it's not much,
Right.
They plant a bomb, they lose 2 dudes, they talk with the Mechanicum adept who is a Mechanicum adept, so not very interesting, but still very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Boring but interesting. There's a lot of that kind of stuff of just minutia, right? It's not. It wasn't as interesting or wasn't necessary, so I just cut it out. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about this book. I thought it was interesting. From my perspective, thought it was great. I would probably rank it at a 4. I would go with that 4.2, 4.5, area.
Okay.
And the Audible version of it was incredibly interesting. The book part of it was dry, like the side stuff felt like a slog to read through. Maybe that's where people are getting that from, but I don't know. Still, I see Still, I see character development. I still see Vulkan himself becoming a better leader. Some people said that Vulkan wasn't in it enough. about an hour of me talking tonight, hour and a half, about half the book. We recorded this session. It's probably going to be about 3 hours and 15 minutes long before we cut it down. About an hour and 45 minutes of that has to do with Vulkan specifically. So I don't know where people are getting that from. I don't know. I think that the people that are reviewing this on certain websites are out to piss on things. I think that's just what it is.
Yeah, a little bit of trolling nature comes in, and
sure. This is the end of episode 3, Vulkan, Lord of Drakes. We're gonna pick back up next time with, like I described last time, the one I love to hate the most. Episode 4 will be Lorgar, Bearer of the Word.
Oh, the word bearers.
Do you know anything about the word bearers?
I know that they bear words.
That's where we're going to end it. Also, make sure you follow our links to see more of us. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. I might do Facebook. Who knows? We'll see. We're around. So if you enjoyed this and you want to give this off to somebody else, definitely think about clicking those links, joining us, and following us for more. So from both of us at the Two Orks, One Squig podcast, thank you guys so much for coming by. We'll see you in the next one.
Have a good one.